for now, let's do a run so you can see what a run looks like in a bit more of a tutorial setting. I will turn on the timer just in case things go well, and I will do my best to commentate on as much of what I'm doing as possible. If there's something I miss, I'll also have an accompanying document to kind of talk through these things a little better, so if you like reading, you can also take a look there. Anyway, let's kick this off. So, for the run, there are some strategies that you'll want to keep in mind. For this first hack, because it's fixed, you can always account for it. So, watch. As you saw there, I positioned myself up here and kind of timed my shot. You can use a lot of the conversations for audio cues in this game. Be sure to keep note of where those are and use them to your advantage. So I came over here, I'm holding F so that I have the hack go off as soon as possible. And hacked. Now I come up here. And I come up here because I like to do these range snipes. As you can see, nothing's spawning. So what that tells me is everything spawned behind me, which is not great. That's okay though. So I took all those out. You can see that I manipulated the spawns to be up here. That was actually a pretty good pattern. Now you see that I walk for this one. The main reason I walk is because I found if you dash into the checkpoint, you'll get the shield bot there is much more likely to turtle up, which is not ideal. Alright. So you'll also see me kind of do a bit of a patrol here, because you can get an additional spawn, and you don't really know where those come from. Alright, hack 2. I like to look over here, and come to this corner. The idea is that I want to camp these enemies, and take out any that walk across, especially if I see a shield. At the same time though, I'm listening for things like missiles. Alright. Now I have enough for a super, so I'm just going to use that. So this is your super. It attracts enemies in, like I said. Each of these supers appear in a specific location on the map. So they are kind of fixed. They're fixed where they can show up, but their effective range isn't too different. So that's all the enemies there. Take your breath. Take your breath is also a cue that you can follow. I call them a beat, but about a second after you hear take your breath, you have an opportunity to kind of hold up. Ooh, good shots. You have an opportunity to dash to hit the checkpoint. That fight is also a fixed spawn. You can get an additional spawn. I dash up to the front like that to prevent additional spawns behind me. What that does is it pushes the spawns in front of me in the worst case. For this fight, you want to kind of stay up to the border here, and you want to hit things more than I have because it goes faster. For these kind of fights in general, you want to kill things as quickly as possible, because spawns are capped at a certain amounts. There will be a certain number of enemies that spawn, and once you kill them, that's it. All right. So I'm going to go over here. This is where the next location is. Hit the checkpoint. And for this fight, you want to watch the timing I do here, but this is where you really want to have your super. Alright. So the enemies will spawn in and get attracted into your super if you launch it early. The super takes about 7 seconds, but that can save you 2 seconds on the super, making it a 5-second fight. That is extremely useful for clearing this quickly. So now this is the point where you'll have your next hack. So I'm over here holding F. I will always stand in front of hack points holding F to speed it up. That was a bit of bad movement, but I come over here to manipulate the spawns a little bit. I mentioned before that hack 4 has... Manipulating spawns in hack 4 is a little difficult. You can still do it, but the degree that you can do it to is a little awkward. That's also a little disappointing. Ideally, you don't want to get shots because they slow things down, literally. So you want to try and kill the most dangerous thing here are birds, because they can actually kill you, and then robots without shields, because they're very likely to shoot. The spawn points, as you saw, they spawn over there in the same position that they kind of spawned before. Hold on. I want to get to this point. So yeah, spawn points are basically from all over the map at this point. Now, what you saw there is I was hacking the point again. This one is on a timer. So as you go through, the hack will basically break at certain points in the run, or certain points here. Sorry, I need to concentrate for a second. You need to go back to those points, to the point, and fix the hack, basically. So what we do is we try to limit how many enemies can show up, and this is where birds become your #1 enemy. Alright, I'm going to drop this here, camp for the hack. So the danger here, I'm protected from bullets, but I'm not protected from lasers. Lasers aren't stopped by the shield because they're not projectiles. Now, I'm pretty sure I don't know what I'm doing with the split times here, so you may want to ignore those. However, this is kind of a good example of a fight that went a little off the rails. The spawn manip here isn't perfect, so there are definitely going to be times where you'll need to kind of improvise. This is a good example. I'm going to use the super. The times that you need to rehack are 149, 129, and 29, I believe. Alright, so I'm going to drop this here, get the hack in, then that. 29 seconds. So we're at the last part of this fight. You can hear the music died down. That means the spawns are slowing down at this point. Alright, excellent. And we're moving into hack 5. When this timer hits 7, no more enemies spawn. So you kind of just survive, like do your last cleanup, survive. That enemy is not worth killing. So what I do is I run up here for the last second, and kind of dash in holding F, and there you go. You've gotten through the hack 5. Something to note, enemies that are still on screen will still be moving at this point. They don't disappear, and you get additional spawns in. That can be a pain. It can also be okay, because they'll walk away like that one did. Now for this, just keep your eyes open as we go through. You'll want to dodge and kind of juke these attacks, and hit that checkpoint. This is where weird checkpoints come in the most. Oh, this is a bad dash through. Alright, we made it through. That was kind of disappointing. I lost a lot of time there. But that is the Chapter 1 escape. That was a pretty poor Chapter 1 escape. But the idea is that you want to dash through the enemies as much as possible. And the last group, you actually want to time stop both the shields and the flying bots, the birds. That way you can dash through them without much issue. So this is Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is kind of a free-for-all, kill everything mission. You're thrown into this room, there are a bunch of enemies that spawn in, and your job is to murder as many of them as possible and try not to die. So the goal here is to build your super as quickly as possible and use it, because that is going to clear so many enemies and make this so much more manageable. There is a spawn cap here as well, and you'll see enemies kind of spawn in. You want to kill any enemies that spawn in as quickly as possible, because the next phase starts when the spawns finish, which is this, and it's just conversation, like 13 seconds of conversation. So kill things as quickly as possible. You have plenty of time to get to the hack point, which is right here. Alright, so now we're done the hack point, on to Blender. This part is pretty straightforward. You just have to go up and wait in the circle. You'll see the circle when I get there. Blender is hard at first, but once you understand how Blender works, he's pretty easy. This is Blender, by the way. He's going to activate after this cutscene. Blender is more or less all RNG, but the two things that are always true is before 20% health, or from 100 to 80, he will always use fist and swipe, which I'll call out as we see him. And after 20, Blender will open up cores, which you will see more than likely. The Blender video will talk a bit more about that. So we got Fist first. So this is how you deal with Fist. And Blunder video will more or less handle this. I'm going to focus more on what do you want to do with Blunder. With Blunder, you want to kind of gamble on RNG, because Blunder can take your run plus 30 seconds or save your run with like a minute off. Your damage phases are kind of when Blunder uses his fists, or when he swipes. This is orbs, as we like to call it, big purple orbs. There's a small orbs as well. This is swipe. For these two attacks, you can actually freeze Blunder's hand and you get this nice little bar up top that lets you do a bit of, well, it lets you do a chunk of damage to Blunder. Alright, dash through this. Alright, this is rockets. Blunder will fire a bunch of rockets. If you have more than half HP, just tank it. Like, literally just tank it. There's no need to really concern yourself with killing him. Now, the goal of this is to get him under 20% right now. So we can shift the phase back to... or so we can shift into his good phase. Cores. So this is cores. You can see he comes out of the ground, you have a few cores. You want to kind of run through and kill all of these. Alright. There we go. Killed all the cores, and Blunder dies immediately. You can also bring Blunder's HP to 0. That is much slower. Once you finish that, you're pretty much home free. You have to come up here. You have plenty of time. There's lots of conversation. And line yourself up. That terminal right there is what you need to hack to finish the run. So this is the queue. One. Alright, getting the hack in, and time. That's a run. That's also a new world record. Super convenient that they happen together. A little disappointing that I screwed up the escape in this case. Could have been a much... that probably was a sub 11:30 without it, but either way, that's an overview of the run. Blunder is really complicated to explain in a good run, so I'm not going to try it. I will save it for next, where we'll actually go right into fighting Blunder and talking a little bit about the chapter select and the categories.